Greetings, esteemed friends and fellow enthusiasts of the criminal mind. Captain Arthur Hastings here, ready to whisk you away to the gaslit streets of London, where shadows lengthen and mysteries beckon. Join Hercule Poirot and myself as we delve into a most perplexing case, one that will test even his magnificent little grey cells. Prepare yourselves for twists and turns, for cunning deceptions, and for the methodical unraveling of truth, piece by painstaking piece. It's a tale where every seemingly insignificant detail holds the key to a larger design, a veritable tapestry of intrigue. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join us on all our thrilling adventures. Now, let's begin with the first chapter of the Golden Key affair. Chapter 1. The Curious Collector of Craven Street. The London fog, a familiar companion in those late autumn months, had begun to coil its tendrils around the city as I joined Poirot for our morning coffee at a rather unassuming but exceedingly comfortable tea room near Piccadilly. The aroma of freshly brewed Darjeeling and warm scones usually promised a day of tranquil contemplation, but this morning a certain restlessness clung to Poirot, like the persistent drizzle outside. He meticulously arranged his sugar cubes, an act that always heralded an impending intellectual challenge. "Hastings, my friend," he began, his accent a precise melody, "it is said that even the most well-ordered life can be shattered by a single misplaced item. Do you agree?" Before I could ponder the philosophical depth of his statement, our conversation was interrupted by the urgent arrival of a young woman, her face pale beneath the brim of her simple yet elegant hat. Miss Eleanor Vance, as she introduced herself, was a distant niece of Mr. Silas Blackwood, a recluse of considerable repute whose eccentricities were almost as famous as his vast collection of antiquities. She was distraught, her voice trembling as she recounted the morning's discovery. Her uncle, Mr. Silas Blackwood, had been found lifeless in his study at his Craven Street residence. The housekeeper, Mrs. Plummet, discovered him. Miss Vance stressed that there were no visible signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, nothing to suggest a violent intrusion. The room appeared undisturbed, a testament to the quiet, almost sterile order Blackwood imposed upon his life. Yet, a crucial detail pricked at her mind, a detail she felt compelled to share with the renowned detective. A highly ornate, intricately carved golden key, the crown jewel of Blackwood's vast collection of similar curios, was missing from its velvet display cushion. Poirot, ever alert to the nuances of human emotion and the subtle distortions of truth, listened with an unnerving stillness. He offered Miss Vance a cup of tea, which she gratefully accepted, her hands still shaking. Her grief seemed genuine, tinged with a bewilderment that suggested a deeper, unarticulated fear. "And this key, mademoiselle?" Poirot inquired gently, his gaze unwavering. "Was it of particular significance?" Miss Vance nodded, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "Uncle Silas was obsessed with it. He believed it was more than just an ornament, that it held some ancient secret. He used to say it was the key to everything." The mention of the key immediately piqued Poirot's interest. We made our way to Craven Street without delay, the fog now thickening into a proper London pea souper, obscuring the familiar landmarks and lending an air of eerie anticipation to our journey. Blackwood's house was a tall, narrow edifice, its windows dark and unwelcoming. Inside, a hushed atmosphere prevailed. Inspector Japp, a familiar and always welcome face from Scotland Yard, was already present, overseeing the initial police investigation. He greeted Poirot with a weary but respectful nod. "Poirot, good to see you, though not under these circumstances," Japp muttered, gesturing towards the study door. "Looks like a quiet end for old Blackwood. No forced entry, no valuables taken, save for that strange key his niece mentioned. Doctor says it could have been a stroke, but—" "Well, there's always a but, isn't there?" The study was a testament to Blackwood's peculiar passions. Walls were lined with glass display cases, filled with keys of every imaginable size and design, from massive iron fortress keys to delicate silver filigree pieces. In the center of the room, on a large mahogany desk, lay Blackwood, collapsed over an open tome. He seemed almost peacefully asleep, were it not for the unnatural stillness. Poirot's eyes immediately swept the room, taking in every minute detail. He noted the precise arrangement of books, the unblemished surface of the desk, the dust motes dancing in the single shaft of weak light penetrating the gloom. His gaze lingered on a small porcelain teacup and saucer, resting beside Blackwood's outstretched hand. It was an exquisite piece, painted with delicate bluebirds. "And this cup, Inspector?" Poirot asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Was Mr. Blackwood fond of tea?" Japp frowned. "Odd you should ask, Poirot. Mrs. Plummet, the housekeeper, swore the old man never touched tea, only coffee. Said it upset his digestion. Quite particular he was." Poirot's eyes gleamed with a sudden, intense light, the little grey cells already whirring. A missing golden key, a reclusive collector, and a teacup containing a drink the victim despised. The stage was set, Hastings, for a mystery that promised to be as intricate as the carvings on the vanished key itself. Chapter 2. Shadows at Paddington Station. The damp chill of the previous day had given way to a crisp, bright morning, though a lingering mist still softened the edges of the grand iron and glass canopy of Paddington Station. The station was a symphony of sounds. The hiss of steam from colossal locomotives, the sharp whistle of porters, the hurried footsteps of travellers, and the myriad calls of newspaper vendors. It was a stark contrast to the morbid stillness of Mr. Blackwood's study, yet Poirot insisted we begin our inquiries here. He believed that even the most solitary of men leave traces, and sometimes those traces lead to the most public of places. "Consider, Hastings," Poirot explained, guiding us through the throng with a precise, almost dance-like agility. "Mr. Blackwood was found slumped over a book in a room without struggle, a teacup beside him of a beverage he abhorred. This suggests, does it not, a certain premeditation, someone he knew, someone he trusted enough to allow into his sanctum, perhaps even to share a moment of refreshment. But then, the missing key. Was it the motive, or merely a distraction?" Our destination within the bustling station was the ticket office, specifically, to speak with Mr. Arthur Pendleton, a long-serving and reputedly sharp-witted ticket collector. Pendleton, a man with a walrus mustache and eyes that seemed to miss nothing, confirmed he had indeed seen Mr. Blackwood the day before his collapse. "Aye, Blackwood, the old key-man as we called him." Pendleton chuckled, though a shadow of unease crossed his face. "Saw him just yesterday, waiting for the Dover train. He was with a younger fellow, well-dressed, but with a shifty look about him. They seemed to be having an animated discussion, quite heated, actually. The young man seemed rather agitated, if you ask me." Poirot, ever careful, pressed for a description. Pendleton recalled the young man's dark, slicked-back hair, a distinctive gold signet ring on his left hand, and a rather nervous habit of constantly adjusting his cravat. He couldn't catch the name, but the image was vivid. Leaving the station, Poirot produced a crumpled, partially burned note, carefully retrieved from Blackwood's fireplace. "Found this tucked beneath a grate, Hastings. Barely legible, but look here. Meet at Serpent's Coil. Final negotiation." And a date corresponding to yesterday. Our next stop was a narrow cobbled alleyway near the Thames docks, a district reeking of brine and stale ale, far removed from the respectable world of Craven Street. Here, tucked between a chandler's shop and a seedy public house, was a dimly lit establishment called Croft's Curiosities. Its proprietor, Mr. Tobias Croft, was a wiry man with sharp, suspicious eyes and fingers stained with grime and polish. He dealt in everything from obscure nautical instruments to dubious historical artifacts. Mr. Blackwood. Aye, he was a regular, Croft grumbled, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. Always poking his nose into things, asking about rare keys, ancient mechanisms. But I haven't seen him in weeks. Said he'd found what he was looking for, last time we spoke. Croft's denial seemed a little too eager, his gaze shifting nervously. Poirot's keen eyes, however, were not to be fooled. As Croft turned to retrieve a dusty ledger, Poirot subtly shifted his position, revealing a small, intricately carved wooden panel on the back wall, half obscured by a stack of old sea charts. Upon it, etched with deliberate precision, was a symbol, a serpent coiled around a staff, its head devouring its own tail. "The serpent's coil," Poirot murmured, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. He asked Croft about it, but the dealer merely shrugged, claiming it was an old sign of the shop, meaningless. As we departed, the fog began to roll in again, heavier this time, muffling the sounds of the city. Poirot's expression was grim. The serpent's coil, Hastings. A name, a symbol, a meeting place, and a mysterious young man with a gold signet ring. The plot, as they say. It thickens. He held up a small object he had subtly palmed from Blackwood's desk back at Craven Street, a train ticket stub to Dover, dated yesterday. So our Mr. Blackwood was indeed planning a journey, but from whom or to what was he truly running? The question hung in the chilly air, heavy with unspoken implications. Chapter 3. The Secret Society of St. James. The following day, the London sky was a uniform, pearly grey, a soft light filtering through the high windows of the St. James's Club, where we next pursued our inquiries. The club was an institution, a bastion of old-world charm and hushed decorum, its oak-panelled rooms and leather-bound books exuding an aura of quiet authority. Poirot believed Blackwood's esoteric interests might be rooted in such an establishment, particularly of the Hermes Society, a more exclusive club within a club, known for its members' shared fascination with ancient lore, secret knowledge, and forgotten histories. The air in the club's reading room was thick with the scent of aged paper and pipe tobacco. Elderly gentlemen, ensconced in armchairs, turned the pages of newspapers with almost imperceptible rustles. We sought out Mr. Reginald Hawthorne, the club's archivist, a stooped, meticulous man with spectacles perched precariously on his nose. He was a veritable walking encyclopedia of the club's history and its members' eccentricities. Blackwood. Oh yes, Silas Blackwood, Hawthorne intoned, adjusting his spectacles. A long-standing member of the Hermes Society, though he became quite reclusive in his later years, always poring over the old texts, you know, particularly those concerning ancient symbolism and lost orders. He paused, a glint in his eye. He had a particular rival, as I recall, Elias Thorne, a brilliant man, but rather volatile. Vanished years ago, presumed dead after a rather public disagreement with Blackwood over an ancient artifact. Some say it was the cause of Blackwood's later reclusiveness. Poirot's ears pricked up at the mention of Elias Thorne. "And this artifact, Monsieur Hawthorne?" "A golden key, as it happens," Hawthorne mused, tapping his chin. Blackwood claimed it was part of a larger enigma, a key to a secret, a legacy, he called it. Thorne disputed its authenticity, calling it a mere trinket. The feud became quite heated, ended with Thorne storming out and never being seen again. A rather unfortunate affair, all told. Hawthorne then led us to the club's dusty, forgotten archives room, a labyrinth of shelves overflowing with ledgers and ancient tomes. Amidst the musty relics, Poirot requested to see the Hermes Society's old membership rosters. With remarkable speed, Hawthorne located the ledger from 3 decades past. There, alongside Silas Blackwood's name, was indeed Elias Thorne, his last recorded presence marked by a line struck through it. As Poirot meticulously examined the ledger, His gaze fell upon a particular passage in a crumbling, leather-bound book Hawthorne had retrieved, a history of obscure European secret societies. There, again, was a description of the serpent's coil, identified as the symbol of a forgotten order of alchemists and cartographers, reputed to have hidden immense wealth and knowledge. The text spoke of a golden key, not as a physical object, but as a method, a deciphering tool for unlocking a lost map. Our next encounter was brief but telling. As we passed through the main lounge, we spotted Sir Julian Thorne, a prominent club member and, as Poirot quickly deduced, Elias Thorne's elder brother. Sir Julian was a man of imposing bearing and somewhat pompous demeanor. Poirot, with characteristic subtlety, steered the conversation towards Blackwood. Sir Julian sniffed dismissively. Blackwood was a fool obsessed with fantasies. My brother, Elias, a genius, was driven to distraction by him, their arguments over that trinket of a key. Utterly absurd. Elias, bless his adventurous soul, simply vanished. He was likely off on some wild expedition. His tone, however, held a defensive edge, and his eyes, though outwardly disdainful, betrayed a flicker of something akin to resentment. He seemed eager to close the topic, suggesting that Blackwood's death was a natural consequence of his isolated, unhealthy life. As we left the St. James's Club, the grey sky pressed down, mirroring the weight of the new information. So, Hastings, Poirot mused, adjusting his coat, a lost rival, a stolen key, and a secret society whose symbol appears at both the suspect's shop and in ancient texts. The golden key is not merely an ornament, I believe, but a puzzle piece, and the plot thickens with each passing moment, like the London fog itself. The name Elias Thorne now echoed in my mind, a ghost from Blackwood's past, casting a long shadow over the present mystery. Chapter 4. The Artist's Enigma in Bloomsbury. The London weather, ever capricious, had decided to surprise us with a sudden, albeit weak, burst of sunshine, illuminating the vibrant, chaotic streets of Bloomsbury. This district, a bohemian enclave, was a world away from the staid elegance of St. James. Here, amidst the narrow streets lined with tall, slender houses, art flourished in untidy studios and intellectual discussions spilled from open windows. Poirot, with his usual unerring instinct, led us to a particular studio tucked away above a bustling bookshop. Blackwood, Hastings, was a collector, yes, but he also commissioned art, Poirot explained, climbing the creaking wooden stairs. Miss Vance mentioned a peculiar painting, requested just weeks before his unfortunate demise. It is often in the unconventional, the unusual, that we find the most telling clues. The studio of Miss Clara Bellamy was a riot of colour and creativity. Canvases in various stages of completion leaned against every surface. Brushes lay scattered like fallen soldiers, and the air hummed with the scent of turpentine and oil paints. Clara herself was a striking figure, her hair a wild tangle of auburn curls, her eyes bright with artistic passion. She seemed genuinely surprised by our visit, but welcomed us with an unpretentious warmth. Mr. Blackwood? Oh, he was a fascinating patron, Clara exclaimed, gesturing towards a large, unfinished landscape on an easel. He had such precise, almost bizarre instructions for his final commission. He wanted a London cityscape, but with a very specific, almost invisible motif woven into it. A symbol, he called it. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The serpent's coil, perhaps, mademoiselle. Clara's eyes widened in astonishment. How did you know? Yes. He insisted it be incorporated into the shadows of the old buildings, almost subliminally, as if it were part of the very fabric of the city. He said it was a homage to a forgotten map. She pointed to a section of the canvas where, indeed, a faint serpentine pattern could be discerned within the urban sprawl, an optical illusion that revealed itself only with careful scrutiny. He was also very particular about the colors, especially the hues of certain wild flowers he wanted depicted in the foreground. As she spoke, Poirot's gaze darted around the studio, taking in every detail. He noticed a small pressed flower, a rare and delicate species, pinned to a corkboard amongst various sketches. He also noted a recent portrait of a young man with dark, slicked-back hair and a prominent gold signet ring. "And this gentleman, mademoiselle?" Poirot inquired, his voice carefully neutral. Clara blushed faintly. "Oh, that's Julian Thorne, Sir Julian's son, a struggling poet often around these parts. He's quite the admirer of my work. And of me, I suppose. He knows Mr. Blackwood well. They were distantly related through the Thorne family, and he used to visit Blackwood's house quite often." The pieces began to click into place for Poirot. Julian Thorne with the gold signet ring, the same young man seen at Paddington Station, and the wild flower. Poirot subtly took a small specimen of the unique flower from his pocket, a petal he had meticulously retrieved from Blackwood's desk drawer. It was an exact match to Clara's pinned specimen. "And where might one find such a flower growing wild, mademoiselle?" Poirot asked. Clara pondered for a moment. "They are quite rare now, mostly cultivated in botanical gardens, but there's a small, forgotten patch of them in an old abandoned garden behind the derelict Thorne family townhouse, not far from here. Julian often takes me there. It's quite romantic, in a decaying sort of way." Our next destination, a short walk through a quieter residential area, led us to a high, crumbling brick wall, overgrown with ivy. Behind it, as Clara had described, lay the neglected grounds of what was once a grand mansion. The garden was a tangle of wild roses and choked pathways, but amidst the disarray, a small, vibrant cluster of the unique wildflowers bloomed defiantly. It was a secluded, almost secret spot, perfect for a clandestine meeting. Poirot surveyed the scene, his brow furrowed in concentration. "So, Hastings, we have a painting that serves as a cryptic map, a rare flower linking two disparate locations, and a young man with a motive, perhaps even an inheritance at stake. Julian Thorne, the serpent's coil seems to be drawing us into a labyrinth of family secrets and hidden desires. The plot, it truly does twist itself into intricate knots, does it not?" He plucked a single petal from the rare flower, placing it carefully in a small folded paper. Each clue, however small, was a thread in the complex tapestry he was weaving. Chapter 5. The Heirloom and the Horticulturalist. The grandeur of the Thorne family estate, nestled amidst sprawling lawns and ancient oak trees, felt like a journey back in time, a stark contrast to the bohemian studio of Clara Bellamy. The house itself was a monument to old money and fading prestige, its opulent drawing room radiating a palpable sense of tension beneath its veneer of polished silver and ancestral portraits. Poirot and I had come to confront Sir Julian Thorne, hoping to glean more about his vanished brother, Elias, and the long simmering rivalry with Silas Blackwood. Sir Julian, despite his earlier dismissiveness at the St. James's Club, now seemed far less composed. He sat stiffly on a damask armchair, his face etched with a mixture of annoyance and thinly veiled anxiety. Lady Thorne, a frail but remarkably sharp-witted woman, joined us, her movements delicate, but her eyes missing nothing. "This incessant dredging up of old family sorrows is quite tiresome, Monsieur Poirot," Sir Julian declared, though his voice lacked conviction. "My brother, Elias, was a romantic fool. He ran off, probably to seek some mythical treasure Blackwood had put in his head. It's all nonsense." Lady Thorne, however, offered a different perspective. "Julian, don't be so dismissive. Elias was an astronomer, a brilliant one. He was obsessed with the stars and with an ancient celestial globe, a family heirloom, said to have a hidden compartment. He believed it held the key to a great secret, something about our lineage, long forgotten. He and Mr. Blackwood, for all their rivalry, shared that fascination. Silas often visited to pore over the globe with Elias. She paused, a wistful look in her eyes. After Elias vanished, the globe was locked away. Sir Julian considered it a painful reminder. Poirot's ears perked up at the mention of the celestial globe and its hidden compartment. It was another kind of golden key, a key to a secret, not a physical object. He pressed Sir Julian about his son, Julian, and his relationship with Mr. Blackwood. Sir Julian became evasive, claiming his son merely had a passing acquaintance with the old collector, mostly through his artistic pursuits with Miss Bellamy. However, Lady Thorne subtly corrected him. "Nonsense, Julian. Our Julian was often at Mr. Blackwood's house, particularly in the weeks leading up to the tragedy. He found Mr. Blackwood's stories fascinating," he said. Leaving the estate, Poirot directed our driver towards Kew Gardens. The botanical gardens were a vibrant oasis, a riot of greenery and exotic blooms under a now cloudy sky. The air was rich with the scent of earth and flowers, a refreshing contrast to the stifling atmosphere of the Thorne Manor. Our destination was not the main greenhouses, but the venerable Kew Gardens Observatory, an older, less frequented structure nestled amongst the trees. There we met Mr. Alaric Finch, a retired head gardener, a man whose memory was as sharp as his pruning shears. He was tending to a small, exquisite patch of rare orchids, his hands gnarled with age but still deft. He remembered Blackwood well. Old Blackwood? Oh, yes. He was a regular visitor to the observatory, Finch chirped, his eyes twinkling. Always alone, always carrying a small, heavy satchel. Pored over the old star charts for hours, he did. Said he was unraveling a cosmic tapestry. Bit mad, if you ask me, but harmless. And he was always so keen on those rare wildflowers, the ones that grow just outside the old Thorne townhouse. Used to collect samples. Finch then paused, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. Funny thing, though. Young Julian Thorne, Sir Julian's son, has been seen loitering around here quite a bit lately, especially in the evenings after Blackwood stopped coming. Always seemed to be watching the observatory, rather than appreciating the plants. As we left Kew, the heavens finally opened, a sudden downpour washing the streets clean. Poirot, however, seemed oblivious to the weather, his mind racing. "Hastings, we have a celestial globe with a hidden compartment, a rivalry over an astronomical secret, and a young man, Julian Thorne, who has been observing the observatory and collecting the same rare flowers as Blackwood. The golden key becomes clearer. It is a key to a celestial map, perhaps, one that leads to Elias Thorne's hidden legacy, and young Julian is clearly more involved than a mere admirer of art." The rain lashed against our cab, a dramatic punctuation mark to the deepening mystery. Chapter 6. The Labyrinth of Secrets. The rain had subsided by morning, leaving the London streets glistening under a pale, watery sun. Our path now led us back to the hushed, almost sacred confines of the Kew Gardens Observatory. Its dome, a dark silhouette against the morning sky, seemed to hold its own secrets, an echo of the celestial mysteries it was designed to unveil. Poirot believed the golden key Blackwood sought was not a key to a physical treasure chest, but a method, a cipher to unlock the secrets held within the observatory itself. The observatory's interior was a labyrinth of polished brass, ancient lenses, and dusty manuscripts. The air was cool and still, permeated by the faint scent of old paper and ozone. Poirot moved with a focused intensity, his eyes scanning every detail, his mind already connecting the disparate threads of the case. He examined the antique telescopes, the star charts, the intricate mechanisms that once mapped the heavens. "Consider, Hastings," Poirot murmured, his voice barely disturbing the silence. "Blackwood was obsessed with keys, with secrets. Elias Thorne was an astronomer, a collector of ancient knowledge, with a secret compartment in his celestial globe. The young Julian Thorne has been seen here, following Blackwood's footsteps, and possessed of a particular interest in these very flowers." Poirot's keen observation landed on a section of the wall where several old, unused astronomical instruments were stored. Behind a large, antiquated brass orrery, his fingers brushed against a cleverly disguised catch. With a soft click, a small lead-lined compartment swung open. Inside, nestled on a velvet cushion, was not a key, but a tightly rolled parchment. A cipher, inscribed with symbols that mirrored those found in the Hermes Society's texts, and subtly incorporated the serpent's coil. Alongside it was a tiny, almost invisible fragment of a unique shimmering metallic element, no larger than a grain of sand. "Aha, Hastings!" Poirot exclaimed, his eyes alight with triumph. The golden key was indeed a method, not a physical object. This cipher, I believe, is the true key to Elias Thorne's legacy, but this fragment, it is highly unusual. Our next destination was a discreet private clinic in Harley Street, its immaculate facade a testament to medical precision. Poirot sought the expertise of Dr. Evelyn Reed, a leading specialist in toxicology. Dr. Reed was a woman of formidable intellect, her precise movements and analytical gaze reflecting a mind trained in the most intricate aspects of chemistry and human physiology. Poirot presented her with a porcelain teacup from Blackwood's study. "Dr. Reed," he began, "Mr. Blackwood, a man who abhorred tea, was found lifeless with this cup beside him. Can you determine its contents and any unusual substances?" Dr. Reed, with a calm professionalism that belied the grim nature of her task, agreed to perform a swift analysis. We returned a few hours later, and she met us in her pristine laboratory, her face serious. "Monsieur Poirot, my analysis confirms the presence of a rare neurotoxin in the residue of the teacup," Dr. Reed stated, her voice crisp and clear. "A derivative of a plant found in specific tropical regions, slow-acting, causing collapse and paralysis, mimicking a natural heart attack or stroke. It requires highly specialized chemical knowledge to isolate and administer in such a precise, untraceable manner." She then paused, a thoughtful frown on her face. "It reminds me of a former student of mine, rather brilliant but unstable. He had a particular fascination with obscure botanical poisons and their effects. A young man named Julian Thorne. He had a natural aptitude for chemistry, but his moral compass, well, it was rather lacking." The name hung in the air, a chilling confirmation. Julian Thorne. The young man with the gold signet ring, seen at Paddington, lurking at Kew, connected to the rare wildflowers, and now to a sophisticated poison. The picture was becoming terrifyingly clear. As we departed, the last rays of the setting sun cast long, dramatic shadows down Harley Street. Poirot gripped the cipher and the tiny metallic fragment, his expression grave. "Hastings, the labyrinth is almost fully explored. The golden key led to this cipher, and the cipher, I believe, will lead to the truth of Elias Thorne's legacy. And young Julian Thorne, it seems, has far more than a poet's sensitivity. He has the mind of a meticulous and deadly chemist. The stage is set for the final act." The metallic fragment, glinting faintly in Poirot's palm, felt like a miniature piece of the dark puzzle that was rapidly nearing its completion. Chapter 7. The Revelation of the Little Grey Cells. The day of the revelation was typically autumnal, a gentle rain falling outside the windows of Poirot's exquisitely ordered flat on Whitehaven Mansions. The atmosphere within, however, was charged with a palpable tension. Poirot had assembled all the key players in his elegant sitting room, Miss Eleanor Vance, still pale but resolute, Sir Julian Thorne, stiff and unyielding, Lady Thorne a fragile presence beside him, Miss Clara Bellamy, her artistic spirit subdued by the gravity of the situation, and finally, Julian Thorne, who sat with an unnerving composure, his dark eyes watchful, his gold signet ring glinting as he unconsciously fidgeted. Poirot, radiating an almost imperious calm, stood before them, his hands clasped, his eyes sweeping over each face. "Mes amis," he began, his voice surprisingly gentle, "we are here to unravel the Golden Key affair, a tapestry woven with obsession, betrayal, and a most ingenious crime. Hercule Poirot, he does not jest when he says, 'All the pieces are now in place.'" He first addressed Mr. Silas Blackwood's death. Mr. Blackwood, as you know, was found lifeless, collapsed under mysterious circumstances. It was not a natural end. He was poisoned. A rare neurotoxin, administered in a cup of tea. A beverage he despised, meaning it was offered by someone he trusted implicitly, someone who knew his habits, and, crucially, his aversion to tea, thereby ensuring he would not suspect it. He placed the delicate bluebird teacup on a small table. Next, the golden key. The famed golden key, Hastings, Poirot gestured to me, was not a physical key to a chest, but the key to a cipher, a method to unlock a secret. This cipher, he held up the parchment from the observatory, was hidden within Elias Thorne's celestial globe, then spirited away to the Kew Observatory. Mr. Blackwood, with his fascination for ancient secrets, had finally deciphered it. Poirot then revealed the true nature of Blackwood's obsession. Elias Thorne, an astronomer, had discovered an ancient family secret, a hidden will concealed within a celestial globe and further encoded within this cipher. A will that disinherited Sir Julian Thorne, leaving the vast Thorne fortune not to him, but to a distant, forgotten cousin, Mademoiselle Eleanor Vance. A gasp rippled through the room. Eleanor's face went white with shock. Sir Julian erupted, red-faced, but Poirot silenced him with a raised hand. "Julian Thorne," Poirot's voice sharpened, his gaze fixing on the young poet. "You knew your father was about to be disinherited. You knew Blackwood had deciphered the will. You saw him at Paddington discussing his discovery, perhaps planning to reveal it. You had the chemical knowledge to create the rare poison, learned from Dr. Reed. You were seen at Kew observing Blackwood's movements, and the rare wildflower, Mademoiselle Clara, which you both collected from the derelict Thorne garden, was not just a romantic gesture. It provided you with a rare ingredient, a component to refine the poison, a detail meant to throw us off by suggesting a more natural origin for a plant-based toxin." Julian Thorne, finally losing his composure, sprang to his feet, his handsome face contorted. He was going to ruin everything. He was a meddling old fool, obsessed with ancient history. The fortune was ours. My father's. He never deserved it. He pounded his fist on the table, his gold signet ring flashing. Poirot continued, undisturbed. "You visited Blackwood that evening, under the guise of discussing Mademoiselle Bellamy's painting, using the serpent's coil as a ruse to gain his trust. You administered the poison in his tea, confident that a man who detested tea would attribute its strange taste to the rare brew itself, not to a sinister additive. You then took the cipher, the true golden key, but left the elaborate ornamental key to mislead the police. A clever misdirection, yet ultimately a fatal flaw in your otherwise meticulous plan. He produced the tiny metallic fragment. This unique element, found with the cipher, was a residue from the specific chemical reaction you performed to purify the poison. It connected you directly, Julian Thorne, to both the instrument of death and the motive." Overwhelmed, Julian Thorne collapsed back into his chair, his head in his hands, defeated. The weight of Poirot's relentless logic was too much to bear. Thus, the intricate puzzle of the Golden Key affair was solved, not by brute force or obvious clues, but by the careful application of Poirot's little grey cells, piecing together seemingly disparate details into an irrefutable whole. It was a triumph of method and observation, a testament to the fact that truth, however deeply buried, will always rise to the surface under the meticulous scrutiny of Hercule Poirot. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling